he's going to compliment you the entire time. He might be a little fresh.
The keystone in the arch of Star Wars.
It's a show that I dearly love and admire, so thanks for having me.
Sorry, I'm getting like emotional.
And you got this hulking, scary dude with the big nose and the perfect hair.
I understand. This is a safe space. This is a safe space between you and I and all of your viewers.
Cassie and gentlemen, people are like, no. I can literally hear people out there. No.
Rogue One was awesome. I love the Han Solo movie, and then of course I love The Mandalorian.
And like getting to talk to fans face to face and learn their names and just, get to hear their stories.
And in the world of Star Wars, there's a bunch of people who look different. There are different species. There's lizard men. There's psychic baby swamp monsters.
I joke that the best thing about writing Princess Leia is everybody knows who she is, and the worst thing about writing Princess Leia is everyone knows who she is.
And also you get Ewoks, and I am definitely a lover of Ewoks.
You're listening to Around the Galaxy.
Yes, it's a good thing. It's a great thing.
Well, welcome to Around the Galaxy, the Star Wars fan talk show. I am your host, Pete Fletcher. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you're watching live, that means you're a patron. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being a part of the ATG Cast family. You get Around the Galaxy on Thursdays. Then every other Thursday, you get our good friend Nick. He brings you Podcast of the Wills. On Saturdays, we bring you the Star Wars news and disturbances in the Force. Give us 5 minutes. We'll give you the galaxy. And then, when there's Star Wars shows on Disney Plus, you can hang out with us on Friday nights on our streaming Star Wars show. But you knew that because you're a patron. You've heard all this stuff before. And like I said, I really appreciate you being a part of the family. Tonight, we're on a little earlier than normal, which is great because we had an opportunity to speak to, I think of him first as a fellow podcaster. Other people who know him think of him first as the bass player for Story of the Year. I now think of him as both, as I've sort of discovered his band through his podcast. Is probably the opposite way many people did. But I am really excited to introduce Mr. Adam Russell. Adam, how are you?
Hello there. I'm good. How are you?
Perfect opportunity to say hello there. You always have to go with that.
It's the best greeting. It's the only one.
And I always forget to say General Grievous. I forget to say that. So, but Adam, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. As I was saying before we came on, I actually discovered you through the podcast. Little did I realize that I had heard a bunch of this stuff. It's that Story of the Year came out around 2003, I think was when your first album was.
Yep.
And I hate to say that because that probably makes you feel like, wait a minute, let me do the math. That's been almost 20 years.
Super old. Yeah. It's coming up.
But
the 10-year anniversary. Yeah.
Yeah. But I discovered you through connecting with Nick Ghanbarian from Bayside, and then realized that he also was part of your Thank the Maker podcast. Maybe give us just a little bit of a short little intro to yourself.
Like you said, I play bass in a band called Story of the Year. That's been my life's work, to be frank. But from birth, I've been a Star Wars fan. So maybe Thank the Maker. Maybe my podcast is actually my life's work. We'll see how it all shakes out. But I met Nick and William Ryan Key from Yellow Card, my co-hosts, through playing shows. I've known Ryan, I've known those Yellow Card dudes since day one, pretty much. We had, and we talk about this in our podcast, in the early episodes, we had a little bit of a beef early on because our first albums, our major label debuts dropped within a month of each other.
Right.
So there was that that just dorky competition that you have when you're young and you're kind of occupying the same space. But it wasn't until that went away. It went away over time, but we didn't really connect until 2010 or 11. We were on tour together on a big festival and kind of realized, I don't know if one of us or the others saw that we both had Star Wars tattoos. And then, as you could expect, it just kind of went from there. And we became really close friends really fast and started talking about doing some kind of movie podcast around 2015, but actually right when the Force Awakens was about to come out, we were going to do this no spoiler pact and do a podcast maybe before and after, expectations and reactions, just a couple episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And that over time just turned into, hey, maybe we should just have a real podcast. And 2-3 years later, after procrastinating, we finally did it. Had Nick on as a guest a few episodes in, and he seemed like the perfect, third in our Force triad. And he became part of the podcast. That was 2 years and 2 months ago. And here we are on our 107th or 108th episode tonight.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I say, and I said it to you, and I said it in the intro. Thank the Maker is one of those podcasts that I'm so glad I discovered. There's a handful of podcasts that I do make sure to check out every week. And, I have so many, you too, we have so many friends who do this sort of Star Wars podcasting thing. You want to support them all. But it's really hard to pick those handful, and you guys do it. And I think it's because of your kind of approach to talking about Star Wars. You were on a podcast. What was it? I have it right here. We were on a podcast recently. It was the This Is Only a Test podcast, and you said you're there just to get people stoked. And I think that that's such a great way to look at it, because there are so many different types of podcasts as it relates to Star Wars, and some are very over analytical, and some, but it just sounds like three guys just hanging out, probably like you did when you were on the road, just BSing about Star Wars.
Yeah, it's tough to find your niche in now this world where anybody can make a podcast anywhere at any time with any device. So there are just literally millions, and who knows, how many thousands of Star Wars podcasts. So it's tough to find that niche. So ours from the beginning has been a few musicians who have that perspective as artists, and that kind of informs, that gives us perspective into what it's like to create art on this like massive global, unprecedented scale of making Star Wars. So there's a little bit of that, but it's also, like you said, just three people who love Star Wars and want to talk about how much we love about it. Not, we're not film critics. We're not a review podcast. We're not a reaction podcast.
Right.
We feel like it's better. It's the old saying, if you ain't got nothing nice to say, then don't say nothing. So
right.
We just, we like to talk about what we love about Star Wars. That's our vibe.
Yeah. I think there's so much there's so much more need for that kind of thing. Is that, one of the most important lessons I think I've taught myself over the last couple of months has been, it's okay to scroll by something and be like, oh, I disagree with that, and just keep going.
Just keep going.
Yeah. So you said, you're a musician. You approach this from a creative standpoint. I got to ask you, how did you get into playing bass? How did that start? How did you make that your instrument?
Being a rock and metal kid first, bass wasn't one of those instruments that any of us really wanted to play in our friend groups. Like if I came up as a ska fan or something, it'd be like, oh no, I want to play bass. But no, it was like, okay, who's willing to play bass? And I started on guitar, and then when my band, who at the time was, another local band, we were friends with them, we played shows. When their bass player quit, I remember thinking, damn, I bet I could play bass. That would be cool. I could try to do that. And then that day, they paged me on my pager in the 90s and asked me if I wanted to play bass. I didn't own a bass. I didn't own a bass amp, but I was just a dude that fit the vibe, and they knew I was a hardworking, creative, driven person. So I became a bass player.
Wow. And so did you become sort of a gear nerd, or are you kind of, I have to say, when I spoke to Nick on your podcast, I was disappointed that he was not as much of a gear nerd as some are. Do you put yourself in that category as well, or no?
I love gear. I just like, of any kind. I like electronics and lights and knobs and stuff. And I just, I love building out a big sweet rack of a bunch of unnecessary crap. But ultimately, I have a really, really simple stripped down rig that's a compressor pedal, a tuner, and my amp, because it's just more practical. But yeah, I love this stuff. I've been down that road.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and this will mean nothing to 90% of my listeners, but I just recently got back into playing after pandemic. I just finally got back into a bar band, and I left the floor full of pedals at home and just plugged into my amp, and it was a different way of playing because
Yeah.
I love to collect that stuff, and maybe it's that collector's vibe that I have with, Star Wars or whatever I'm into. You got to get everything for it. You got
Yeah.
to dig into all of it.
Yeah.
That's
It's fun,
funny.
if nothing else.
It's right. It's a hobby, right? It
Yeah.
keeps you out of trouble. So, as a Star Wars fan, how did you discover Star Wars? What was your sort of first Star Wars experience?
My first Star Wars experience, I don't have any memory of. I have memories of stories that I've been told since I can, since I can remember having memories. I know my dad took me to see The Empire Strikes Back. I would have been 3.
Mhm.
No, I would have just turned 3. Oh, wow. Yeah. So I was little.
Hmm.
But of course, I have no memory of it. But he always told the story that his best friend who was with us, who was, rest in peace, 6'9".
Hmm.
I kept calling him Chewy after the movie because he was just, so damn tall. And then I guess my first actual memory, which may be a false memory that I only have from seeing pictures, but I'm going to act like it's real, was Christmas, probably 1984. Yeah. I remember coming out and seeing all the Star Wars figures. I got all Star Wars stuff that year. And instead of wrapping all of them, my parents laid them out on the piano, just like displayed them. I don't know if they were being lazy or if my dad just said, "Oh, wow, that looks cool. He'll like that." Either way, it was, like a dozen figures and the Millennium Falcon and a lightsaber and all that stuff. And I remember I told this on the podcast, the story of waving the lightsaber. It was one of the old school ones. It wasn't retractable. You get it in a cardboard bin at the end of the toy aisle, that kind of thing. And at the top, it had, like sort of a crosshair kind of thing that acted as kind of like a whistle, sort of. But it was, because of the size, it was vroom, vroom, it made a pretty legit lightsaber sound. And I was just waving the thing around in the living room. And I heard the sound, but I wasn't connecting the dots, I guess because it was noisy. My sister's unwrapping presents and screaming and stuff. And I'm waving it going, does someone have a chainsaw outside or something? And I'm just waving it. My dad's like, stop. Do you hear it? No. Okay, now wave it again. Now you hear it? I was like, oh, cool. Oh, that's cool. And for whatever reason, that's like the moment that's stuck in my head of that lightsaber.
Yeah. It's so interesting how Star Wars, like, there's these little things that happen that plant in your head, right? Those moments when, when somebody says the word Star Wars, you think of something, and there's something very special about that. We talked briefly before we got on, and I have to dig into it because I was looking back as I was preparing for our conversation. I was looking back at all my guests, everybody from Nick, who that's his job, that's your job to play bass. But John Tague, who's an actor, he's a bass player. I was talking to Katrina Dennis, one of my guests, and I noticed, I said, "Is that a precision bass behind you?" She's like, "Yeah, that's my 86 Fender Precision," or whatever year it was. I was like, there's something about Star Wars, and I'm going to expand it to rhythm sections because, I had Charlie Benante on the show as well. What do you think it is about Star Wars? Is there something there, or am I just noticing it because, like, you buy a new car and everybody's got that same car? Is there something about Star Wars and the bass player that's connected, do you think, or where's that coming from?
There's definitely there's a Venn diagram there that can't be dismissed, of like personality types, and like the type of nerd that obsesses over something like Star Wars might also be the kind of nerd who ends up in that, I don't know, more introverted maybe kind of part of the band, not a lead singer, not a lead guitar player type. Like I said, I started on guitar, but I don't know, for whatever reason, I guess I fit that that archetype,
Right.
because, you named a few, but I can name 3 more, including a couple guests on our show who are also bass players. Even I don't know. It's weird. We had John Feldman on, lead singer of Goldfinger. He was originally a bass player.
Right.
It's weird.
There's a connection there somewhere, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's yeah. I don't know. I think it's there's something with that. I think you're right. I think that sort of personality, that sort of introverted. And again, I think bass players also, we talked about it before a little bit, sort of gear nerding. I think there's sort of that kind of there is that sort of I don't know that I don't want to say intellectual because I'll insult every guitar player I know, but there's that sort of and they're not watching a show like this. There's that sort of thing that where it is kind of you lock onto sort of the deeper thought of things. And I think that's why Star Wars ends up kind of sticking with you, because there's so much going on in the lore right now as well, or even through the years. You know, you watch a you watch one of the old movies and you pick up on a character in the back. Were you more likely to dig into you know, some of the creatures at the cantina, or did you know, when it came to the action figures you picked, or did you go for the Lukes and the Hans?
I gravitated towards whatever had the most interesting parts mechanically. Like I loved the Obi-Wan with the lightsaber that retracts into the arm.
Yeah.
Because I'm, you know, like I'm a gadget nerd also, you know, so I like to see how things work. So it wasn't as much like I didn't play with action figures the way I think a lot of kids do. I was always taking things apart and putting them back together, swapping arms and doing dumb stuff. But I would say, oh God, I don't know. It's an interesting question. But something I did think of while you were kind of thinking out loud there, I think there's something about being a bass player and not being, you know, it's not a role in a band that gets much of a spotlight. It's there. I mean, the list of bass player jokes is a mile long, you know, like, you know, about a bass player's song, you know, being, you know, about us just being like disposable, basically is what it comes down to. So like, there's something about there's something about finding your place in the universe, I guess, that like hero's journey, that quest kind of thing, that the escapism that you get from fantasy and fantasy sci-fi, that I think is all part of that overlap, that Venn diagram of personality types. So
that's an interesting pathway. I mean, yeah, it is sort of that. Yeah, find it. Yeah, just a sort of just a simple man trying to find my way in the universe kind of thing. That sort of this is my way to be a part of it in a very productive way that doesn't require the spotlight or the flashiness or the it's interesting. It's almost a kind of a support role, and I think drummers to a degree as well. I mean, drummers are either insane or, you know, just sort of doing their job, right? It's one of the other. Yeah. Either you're Tommy Lee or you're Watts from the Rolling Stones. There's very little in between. So
for sure.
Yeah. So maybe it is that sort of, that kind of interesting sort of support role that being a part of it. Plus, I think there is that introvertedness, that sort of thinking about things quite a bit. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just fishing because I know so many bass players and we all like Star Wars.
Just trying to get to the bottom of it.
I gotta figure this out, Adam. I'm not going away until I figure this out. So you have recently been on the Galactic Star Cruiser, and you've done, I want everybody to go listen to your podcast on it. So I'm not going to ask you the questions that came from that you already covered, which was just about everything about Star Cruiser. But again, first of all, I think the cool thing about the way you went about it was you shared enough information, and I still wanted to go, right? It was enough there. So that was really well done as far as delivering the information. But you've sort of become kind of that, you guys are sort of like the early explorers, right? Because people have latched onto that experience. So I guess, first of all, the simple question, and I know how you've described it, but the simple question is it everything you expected it to be? I know you said it was a fantastic experience, but when you think about it, what you brought with you into it, sort of the old cave on Dagobah, right? Only what you bring with you. what did it meet those expectations, exceed it, fall flat? What were I mean, again, I know you had a fantastic experience there, but what you walked in with and what you walked out with, how did they compare?
It was so much more than I expected it to be. And it was more than I expected it to be, but not necessarily in the same way. You know, like
Mhm.
the expectations versus reality were not 1-to-1,
Mhm.
but it was like I expected to, like, a lot of stuff I brought from my costume, little trinkets and things, and like what I thought I was going to spend my time doing wasn't necessarily what I spent my time doing. But I didn't have very firm expectations. I just kind of had like broad brushstrokes ideas of how it would be. That said, it was just like, God, like I've already been called a shill more times than I can count, but it was just like the best time and money I've ever spent.
Yeah.
In 48 hours. It was crazy because like we lived Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because we did go in completely open-minded, like you said, bring, only what you take with you is what you get out of it. And going in completely open like that, open to doing things out of our comfort zone, whether it was just the very concept of LARPing essentially, or the idea of being emotionally open and intellectually open in terms of like suspending your disbelief for the sake of the emotional experience. Because like I said in the podcast, I know that wasn't Daisy Ridley. I know that wasn't, Adam Driver's voice. I know like the droids are controlled by somebody with a remote control somewhere. I know these people are acting, but like if you just surrender to it and just live it, it is the coolest experience you'll ever have in your life. Just be a kid.
Did you find? Yeah, that's what I wanted to kind of ask you. How did you find it difficult? Because as adults, we've become so tainted, or as we were saying before, the thing about being the sort of Twitter film critics or whatever. How long did it take you to be able to completely immerse yourself? And because I that's my concern. Like if I go and I bring my kids, or I just go with some friends or whatever, there's like we all have that wall that we all carry with us, that we I love Star Wars, but I can't go all in sometimes, right? For whatever reason, right? How long did it take you to get to that point? And do you feel like it was the experience that helped you get there? Did the people who are part of the experience help you get there?
The people who are there, the employees, the cast members, are absolutely crucial in helping you get there, because they're so invested, and whether or not you want to be, they'll treat you like a real traveler on a real starship. So all you have to do again is just submit to the thing. Just let go your conscious self, like I keep saying. It took, I mean, we went in fully in costume. We're like, we're doing this damn thing from minute one. But it wasn't until that evening of the first day, when we were just, a couple drinks helps too. We were in the lounge, and we were playing sabacc. We were all in costume, when we finally had a moment where I guess I was settled in enough, because there is some kind of like FOMO anxiety of, oh my God, I have to take advantage of every single second or I'm going to completely blow it. I'm going to waste my time here if I don't. But once we settled down from that and realized, okay, we just be here. Stop trying to, rush around and do everything, because you can't do everything. We settled in, and in the cantina, and I mentioned this in the podcast. I don't know if it was. Did you listen to both of them? Because we did a spoiler one.
Yeah, I listened to both. Yep.
Okay. So, we were playing sabacc, and we were fully playing sabacc. Like, we learned the game well enough that we were trying to win, even though it's, no stakes, but we, you want to win, maybe.
If you're playing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there with my elbow on the table, sabacc cards in hand, drink in the other hand, poker face on, and the Mos Eisley Cantina music comes on, the song,
Right.
And it was like I just got goosebumps again thinking about it. It was so so fully real.
Yeah.
We didn't have to say anything to each other. We just all looked around like, dude, like we're here. We're really here now. Like it's really happening. And after that, I was just like, let's go every moment. Like, let's do it.
That's fantastic. And I think, like you said, I think it sounds to me like you have to be in the right, you have to be willing to go to the right mindset. You might not be there when you
Right.
walk through the door, but you have to be willing to be like, okay, let's see how this goes, and just run with it. And I think that's great. And like you said, it's funny. You say people have called you a shill. I'm actually wearing my shill t-shirt. But how do you manage? I mean, and you were talking before about you're coming to Star Wars from a creator perspective, right? You've had fantastic selling albums. You've toured the world. You've been a creator. So whether you've created films or music or books, people kind of judge no matter what, right? You're never going to make everybody 100% happy. So how do you manage that sort of Twitter hellscape that we're in? How's the Twitter experience changed, or the social media experience changed for you, or have you always been able to kind of, whether it was from the early days of social media when the band was taking off to now where you're trying to enjoy Star Wars, whether it's Book of Boba Fett or the Galactic Star Cruiser or whatever, there's both sides out there. How do you manage your social media time? And do you manage the Thank the Maker account?
Yeah, I spend the most time. The other guys spend time probably on the account kind of browsing around, but I do all the posting and I kind of curate all of our content. So I live it all day, every day, whether or not I want to, because like you said, it can be a total hellscape. So it's tough because I can't not spend that time, especially because a lot of our content, the majority of our content, is memes, which I have to curate from all of social media, and to find them, I have to spend the time there. So I take in all the crap with the good stuff too. And it's hard not to engage like anything else, just like politics or anything else. You see something that really sets you off and you want to respond, and then you go down that rabbit hole and then it ruins your day. So it's tough.
Yeah.
But I've taught myself to like when to just not, you just can't give in. You know what I mean? Occasionally I'll respond to stuff, and it especially the past couple of years with the sequels, it's been tough not to just like go off on people, like, because it's not just about negative opinions, it's about the way people talk about other human beings as if they're not human beings. And that makes me furious. The way Daisy Ridley and Rose Tico, come on,
Kelly Marie
Tran, have just been pummeled by people as if they're not human beings that don't read this stuff, that don't have real emotions. Like, people just trashing them. I can't just like sit there and not say anything sometimes. So it's tough then. And then when it comes directly at us, kind of for the first time ever now with this Galactic Star Cruiser coverage, it's almost, it's like it's harder and easier because I can laugh at it, because I know, I mean, first of all, I think people should look up the definition of shill, because I don't think people understand that they're legitimately implying that we receive some kind of financial compensation from Disney for speaking positively about it. Ha ha.
It's not that you wouldn't accept it, but they're not doing it. I always tell people, people call me a shill every time I say something positive on social media, and I'm just like, if I was collecting the checks, I'd accept it, but I'm not.
No, that's just not a thing. So yeah, you can. It's easier to laugh at it, but it's also just, God, it's so frustrating. Like, it took less than an hour in the comments, the YouTube comments on the "This is only a test episode," for people to just start like rattling off the dumbest crap of all time about this dude's this delusional shill, blah 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 blah. Like Disney clearly planted him for. I mean, just like, okay, I'm a plant. Yeah, I've been sent here by my overlords. Like, get out. Just get the hell out.
I can't imagine living in a world where you're so delusional that you believe that because something is something that you don't like, right? Or it's not even that. There's so many reasons why people are mad at the Disney Star Cruise, and that's why I listened to the spoiler parts of your episodes as well, was because I wanted to understand, what does it feel like? All the things that people say, oh, it doesn't look like Star Wars. Well, it kind of looks exactly like Star Wars, and and just all those sorts of things. But I think you brought up an interesting point earlier around Daisy and Kelly Marie Tran, and I think that's why the Star Wars conversation is probably more difficult, and I'm sure it's every other fandom. I'm not as deep into other fandoms, but it's the Star Wars argument becomes sort of a cover for another argument. They're angry about something political or something, some sort of race relations or whatever. So they're putting a Star Wars sort of covering on it and yelling about that. But it's funny. I think it's really easy to see through, and people hide behind it, and that's where it becomes like that's where I can't just scroll by. I said before, I can scroll by when somebody says they loved something I didn't, or didn't like something I did. I can do that, but it is really hard to scroll by once you see people just sort of hiding behind their keyboard and using that as a platform to be ugly.
Yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, being creators ourselves and having to deal with judgment of our art, of things that we create, things that we care deeply about, it really hits home. You know what I mean? Like, because you've got like what's it called? Like the phenomenon where road rage comes from. You have this insulation of this metal box on the road that makes you act in a way that you would never act if you were physically directly in front of someone, right?
Yeah.
You put the internet between two people, and we're just monsters to each other. Even directly to other people, like right in the comments of our own posts for our band, or I see this, for other bands, like speaking as if we're not standing right there, essentially,
right.
Speaking of us in terms of they did this, and it's like, you're saying they to me, like you'd stand right in front of someone and just be like, man, that band, I don't know about that damn band and that new album, that sucks. Like, bro, you're looking me right in the eyes.
Yeah.
Like that's what it feels like when someone, when you comment on someone's post and talk that way. So I really feel it when I hear, like, I'll see it like right in the comments of official Star Wars posts.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, do you think you're just talking out into the emptiness of space? No, like you're talking to somebody. People read this crap. So that stuff it just makes me so bummed about humanity, like the lows that we can sink to.
Yeah.
So again, the old saying, if you ain't got nothing nice to say, then don't say nothing.
Yeah.
It's really a good way to live your life.
No, and I think I love that. I think that's really that's so applicable to everything, right? And I mean, how many people lost touch with family members because of their crazy Facebook posts about over the last 4 to 6 years of things in this country, and it's been very difficult and really, really pent up, and none of it's acceptable. And I think that's the key, right? It's like there's never a time where it's like, oh no, it's okay that you bullied that person off of social media. No, that's
right.
I can't think of a reason where that's legitimate. But again, one of the key things, and one of the things that I really enjoy is a podcast like your own, which is very positive, and again, not to the extreme. And I think the other thing that's really important, and I've been talking a lot about this lately, is sort of this Venn diagram of the Star Wars fan, and not Venn diagram, this sort of this curve, this bell curve, where you have that sort of far right, where you have people like you and I who just spend too much time on social media and are big Star Wars fans and can actually people if we need to. But there's that whole center section, and that'll be the last question I ask you about the Star Cruiser. Like that center section, that people, I always refer to my dad. He's 75 years old. He's coming with me and my 9-year-old son to Celebration in May. He watches the shows on Disney Plus. He'll go to the movies, but he's not studying Clone Wars. He's not looking for, the
Right.
deeper meaning and what's happening there. How did the Star Cruiser did it effectively reach people like yourself and your crew, as well as there had to be some guys sort of there in their cargo shorts and their t-shirts, kind of like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah, it was mostly, I would guess, mostly super diehard fans like us. And I think that has to be just because we were on the second voyage ever,
Right.
So got early adopters there. But so it'll be interesting to see what it's like in a year.
Yeah,
but there were some folks that seemed more casual. Definitely people in Star Wars t-shirts. But I can say for certain, well, I can assume for certain based on everyone's faces that everyone still had the time of their lives.
Yeah.
You can go as deep as you want, or you can just kind of experience it on the surface. And the Imagineers, the writers, have crafted this thing in a way where if you want to have a good time, you're going to have a good time.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm really glad you guys had a good time. And now something that I was trying to just talk myself out of and say, what, I don't really need to do that. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to go do that. Because I think it needs to be something that I really want to do. Cool. Well, Adam, I have this section on my show that I call the 10 questions section, where I ask you 10 questions. There's no wrong answers. I won't judge you. The internet might, but I'm sure.
Of course, as is tradition.
As is tradition. Give long answers, short answers, whatever you want to go with. But let me hit you with these 10 questions if you're cool with it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. First question. What's your favorite Star Wars movie, TV show, or book? You can give all three. You can just give one. Your call.
My favorite movie is The Empire Strikes Back.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the one I always put on. It's not. I don't watch it most frequently. I've probably seen it the most because it's been a movie since I was born, essentially. So,
right.
But the Force Awakens is like a firm second place, because I just think it's magical. I think it captured Star Wars in a way that was perfect for a new generation, and I'm so happy that it was made by who it was made by J.J. Abrams. I'll say the man's name, because I think he was the perfect filmmaker for the moment. So it's great. I won't get specific about the others. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, that's perfect. Good. It's have you been I know you have, because I've been listening to the show, but you're the Disney Plus programming that's on its way. What of all the shows that are coming, this isn't one of the 10 questions, but of all the shows that we know are coming, Bad Batch 2, we know we got Mando 3, we've got Andor, we've got Kenobi, further down we got Ahsoka to match your shirt. We've got a bunch of other things coming out. What is the thing that you're most stoked about? And honestly, what's the thing that you're like, I know it's going to surprise me, but it's not at top of my list?
The Kenobi series is right at the absolute top, but the Ahsoka series is right behind, because Obi-Wan's always been my favorite character, but Ahsoka in the past few years has really just skyrocketed to a really, really close second.
Yeah,
I was a late adopter to the whole Clone Wars thing, and didn't actually finish season 7 until the day that we interviewed Ashley Eckstein. So it was it was something that I didn't expect to love. I was like, okay, this will be cool, and this will round out my knowledge. And I got so invested, I was like just completely blown away. So it's tough, actually, I say Kenobi's first and Ahsoka's second, but I don't know, man. They might be tied.
I'm with you, because I feel like the Kenobi one is now it's proximity. So I'm just like, I'm hungry for it. We've seen the trailer for it. And I find it so interesting and I'm with you on Ahsoka. When I first saw the Clone Wars movie, I was like, come on, Snips and Sky Guy, this isn't what is this? And now, honestly, she's absolutely one of my favorite Star Wars characters. And in fact, she may be, in some cases, the most Star Wars-y character of all the characters. She embodies so much.
For real.
And it's just so to see where that's going to go is so, I'm so excited about that. But I gotta admit, the Kenobi stuff with the prequel connections is, I'm just watching that trailer. I was just like, it all came flooding back. All those, the last 20 years since the prequels, and so and it's going to tie to A New Hope. I mean,
here's what's really, really exciting is that these shows, as we know now, they aren't their own little islands that live. They're not mutually exclusive from the rest, right? Everything is overlapping so hard, everything. So there's no reason why we couldn't see Ahsoka in Kenobi and vice versa.
Right.
So, I mean, even if it's it would be a Force ghost, Obi-Wan in the Ahsoka series, but everyone's everywhere. Luke could be all over the Ahsoka series. So, I mean, I just look at all of these kind of like, call them Mandoverse, like for lack of a better thing. All these series as one big story. So it's hard to parse it out.
Do you find it hard? I certainly do find it hard to go into these things without over expectations, right? Like I've said it 100 times. When I saw The Last Jedi, which is now among my top Star Wars stories, much like you with Empire, I don't watch The Last Jedi a lot, but I love this story. So I think it's one of it. But I walked out of that and said that was both the best and worst Star Wars I had ever seen, because in my head, I had written what was going to happen. Here's how it was going to go. And it didn't happen. And I think the same thing happened with me for the last episode of Book of Boba Fett. I thought for sure we were going to get, we're going to get Kira, we're going to see something this, and we're going to see that. And we didn't. So, but the second time, I loved it. How do you find that you get into that sort of trap as well?
100%. And the two examples you made are probably, those are my biggest examples as well. Like I just, like I said, we went into The Force Awakens, zero spoilers, watched the trailer once in a theater, only saw the poster, in physical form out in the world, no speculation. And it made it an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, I did that. Now I'm going to actually go all in, and got all into theorizing and everything, and just like watched every bit of content over and over and over about The Last Jedi. And it's not the way to do it. You create absolutely unattainable expectations. You just have to go in and just take it in. Like the marketing culture around movies now, I think it ruins movies.
Yeah.
At the very least, it makes movies not as magical of an experience as they can and should be.
Yeah.
So it's a tough balance. As you know, being a Star Wars podcaster, you have to speculate to some degree. You have to think about it a lot more than the average viewer. So it's really tough. But, we find a way.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And my hope is to kind of just let the Kenobi series wash over me, because I want that.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a great experience. All right. The next question on my list here is, what's your favorite non-Star Wars movie?
Without a doubt, hands down, Boogie Nights.
Nice. Very good.
It's the most rewatchable movie ever made.
I'm not even sure where to go with that, but it's a great movie. I mean, it's
dude. I mean, think about it's the most insane ensemble cast in the past like 30 years, probably. So Mark Wahlberg, John C. Reilly, Burt Reynolds, William H. Macy, what's his name? Who died? Jesus.
I can
Philip
see
Seymour Hoffman.
Julianne
Moore. The one guy, who plays the Colonel. It's just a huge cast. Don Cheadle, like it's insane. All these folks, like as they were coming up in their careers, like it's the reason that John C. Reilly got into comedy. Like Will Ferrell saw that movie and was like, I gotta work with that guy. So yes, it's about porn, but it's an amazing movie.
Yeah, that's true. And you're right. I mean, the cast alone is just that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm with you. That's a good one.
But then I'll
Okay.
also say real quick,
Yeah.
my second favorite, like, franchise or fictional universe is Back to the Future.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
big time. I was such a Michael J. Fox fan.
Yeah.
I didn't join the Young Republicans Club, but I loved Alex P. Keaton. I was always like, on my office chair, like, trying to be him. Like, I love that guy.
Yeah. And that's it. So how did you respond to the Christopher Lloyd murmurings for Mando season 3? Oh my gosh.
I can't wait, dude. I responded with memes. Yeah. That's how I responded.
Marty. It's gonna be great.
Run for Marty.
That's gonna be I just can't wait. All right. Describe Star Wars in 3 words or less.
It's my religion.
That's on your Twitter account, right? That's the
Yeah. It's not very descriptive, but that's more descriptive of me than it is of Star Wars, I guess.
Yeah, but that's what it means to you. It is interesting. I've had conversations lately with people about this sort of concept of it really being this mythology. I mean, I've been saying that for 20 years in, when I've done speaking engagements, things like that. But it really is the mythology of our time, and in a world where religion is meaning different things to different people, the commitment to the story and the lore, it's honestly, by definition, not that far off for me, for you,
Absolutely.
just that sort of study and commitment to it, right? So
yeah, I've asked this question for half my life. I've just like posited. No, I've just put this thought out to anyone in a conversation where I feel it's appropriate to have. Modern religions. What's so different about our modern religions from the mythologies that we like? Where's the line where we say, nope, that's no longer a religion. Now that's a myth.
Right. Yeah.
It's they all follow the same rules and concepts. They have the same archetypes. They have the same types of characters. So yeah, you're right. Star Wars is absolutely our modern mythology, and George would say as much. Like he pulled all of these ideas from mythology, from Joseph Campbell's writings about mythology and the hero's journey and so on. So I feel like we are, in a way, like theologians, as podcasters, we're historians.
Well, and you said, when does religion become myth? The other question is, when does myth become religion, right? Because that's the I often think, because I spend too much time thinking about very strange things, but in 1,000 years, when they look back, will they be teaching Star Wars like you and I learned about Greek mythology, right? I mean, that we spent time learning all the Greek gods. Will 100 generations from now, will they be like, well, it's the legend of Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader and the fall of the Jedi? And I mean, it's a crazy thought because we're living in it, but it could be, man. And so I think to reference it as a religion, you sort of said, to the wrong people, they would look at you and think strange things. But the reality is, calling us theologians of Star Wars is a great way to look at it. In fact, the other podcast that is every other Thursday on our channel here is it's called Podcast of the Wills by my buddy Nick, and he takes sort of a deep dive, and he does essentially not from a Christian perspective, but a Bible study style discussion about Star Wars content. So it can be done. So we're halfway there.
Dude, you just made me think of something great, which I hope you've seen. And if not, you should watch it immediately as soon as we're done. Anyone listening should watch it. I forgot the name of the short, but it's a really ambitiously made short film called, God, what is it? It's well, the idea is that, like, there are these archaeologists. It takes place, it's very Indiana Jones, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they uncover these artifacts. They find this place in the desert, and it turns out, I don't want to spoil this. It ties right in with the Star Wars' mythology, Star Wars' religion kind of thing.
All right. Well, I'm gonna.
I'll send you
I'll DM you and remind you to send it to
Yeah.
me, because I'm gonna, and then we can share it. That sounds I
It's
don't
great,
know.
dude.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm gonna have to check it out. Whatever it is, it sounds pretty awesome. Okay, the next question on this list is, what is your favorite Star Wars sound effect? We go from speaking of Star Wars as a religion to what's your favorite sound effect?
Yeah. Oh man, it's gotta be that screaming TIE fighter sound, like the sound of TIE fighters inbound is like, I think it appeals to the Top Gun fan in me,
Mhm.
like the sound of like a jet going by or something, but it just has like such a screaming roar to it,
Mhm.
that high pitched kind of sound. I always loved it. And, as a kid holding a TIE fighter, it's the best toy to play with because you hold the cockpit and
Yeah.
you can just fly. If anyone's watching me, you can fly it with your hand. It's just perfect. So
Yeah.
even though I wasn't a dark side fan, I wasn't an Empire fan as a kid. I was always very much like, I was into Jedi, but there's something undeniable about the sound and look and feel of a TIE fighter.
Yeah. All right. And this is I have to ask you because this a lot of people have said TIE fighter, and I've thought of the same image every single time. When you think of the TIE fighter sound, what movie clip do you think of when you hear that sound in your head?
I mean, it's got to be, pick a moment from the trench run kind of thing.
Yeah.
And probably right around the moment when Vader gets knocked out,
Oh, cool. Yep.
How about you?
For me, it's when they arrive at Alderaan and the TIE fighters go screaming by them, and they're like,
Oh, yeah.
fighters couldn't get it this far,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, wow, yeah. But it's so funny. Like again, like your lightsaber story from being a child. There's these little moments that are burned in your head when somebody says something, and I think that's why it is such an important piece of our lives, because it's there. It's taking over brain cells that probably should be used for important things. But
as the kids say, it lives rent free in our brains.
Exactly. In fact, I'm paying rent for it to live in my brain. That's
a big part of the budget.
That's right. Who's your favorite droid?
I've always loved R2. I mean, I have a giant R2 tattoo on my shoulder. He's the dude. He's the homie,
Yeah.
But K2SO really found a place in my heart really quickly.
Any droid that can be sarcastic and slap somebody.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. Again, when I saw pictures of K2 for Rogue One, I was like, there's been a lot. It's interesting. I think one of the things I've learned is that a lot of the Star Wars stuff that when we find out we're getting it, my initial reaction, and maybe it's me finally getting through that it's my childhood kind of thing, is like, like when I heard they were doing the Kenobi series, honestly, I was like, I don't know if we need that. But now I can't wait. When I heard they were doing Rogue One, I was like, I don't know if we need that. But it's such a fun, great movie. Solo is another example. Like, it's not even going to be Harrison Ford. Do I need that? Yeah, I did. I needed
turns out
all
I
of it. Turns out it was missing from my life, and I needed it. You said you weren't a dark side guy. So which character would you most like to be, and why? Which Star Wars character?
Oh man. Well, it would be a Force user. It would be a light side Force user. My two favorite characters have had really brutal lives, so I don't know if I want to be either of them. Kenobi's had just like the most brutal life, and Ahsoka's not much better off. God, this is a tough question. Maybe Qui-Gon Jinn.
Okay.
Because he kind of did his own thing.
Yep.
He kind of took his own path, and he's the reason that all the Jedi after him knew how to, reconnect with the living Force and become Force ghosts. He's the dude.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Plus, Liam Neeson, classic Neesons.
That's right. Exactly. Awesome. I think that's a great call. All right, as Star Wars fans, we all have collectibles. What's your favorite Star Wars collectible that you have?
Oh, man. I'm not into toys. I mean, I'm not into toys, but they aren't my thing as much. I like props. I like to feel like I have a piece of that universe in my hand.
Yep.
So every lightsaber I have, I love. But the thing I collect most, I don't know if you can see in the video, I have different versions on different media formats of the films. Like
Oh, cool.
that's because I had so much stuff. I just got out of control. And, when my band was making money years ago, I just tried to buy everything. I thought I was going to be the second coming of Steve Sansweet. But I realized at some point that's impossible. So I had to kind of refine my collection. So I just started getting the films on everything. I have VHS, Betamax, of course, DVD and Blu-ray. I have an 8mm. I'm going to grab this. Hold on. This might be the one. An 8mm, Super 8 film, color. It's just excerpts of the film because you can't put the whole film on this little 8mm reel.
Wow.
Signed by Peter Mayhew from Celebration
amazing.
2019. I figured, this is probably the coolest thing that I could have had him sign. Got it. Got the little little authenticity thing on the inside.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's a
love this
cool
one.
one. Yeah. And that's the thing too. I think of that reinforces how personal Star Wars is that the things I think that, when I ask people those collectible questions, it's, for me, it's my tickets that I have from the premieres in New York City from the prequels when I had the chance to go there. It's, they cost me whatever it cost me to get into the city and come back. But there's that thing like that film has probably also got a very unique value as well, but it's a different kind of thing, and everybody's got the things that they get into, and there are different types of collections, which is great. I've had to, like you said, I was going pop crazy. I've now like sort of gone into sort of Grogu pops. Like that's kind of, you gotta find a niche, otherwise you can't be a completist. Only Steve Sansweet can be a completist. You're 100%.
There can be only one.
There can be only one. Yes, the Highlander of Star Wars. If you could own any spaceship or vehicle from the Star Wars universe, what would it be?
Oh God. Even though I like the sound more, it wouldn't be a TIE fighter.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a toss up between an X-Wing and the Falcon. I lean towards the X-Wing because, again, the Top Gun thing.
Yeah.
I want to get on a highway to the danger zone whenever I want to. Oh God! You hit me with the hard ones, man. The Falcon's so dope, though, and it's huge. I mean, relatively speaking,
right? It's
gonna be the Falcon, actually.
All right, now the Lando Falcon or the Solo Falcon?
I like it good and trashy. So yeah. I'll take Han's version.
Excellent. Okay, 2 left. What's your favorite Star Wars moment?
Oh man. It's tough to give one answer because, there are different eras in our lives that correspond with the different eras of Star Wars, different emotional times in our lives. God, I'm going to get a lot of hate from prequel stands on this one, but the moment when R2 puts up the map in The Force Awakens and the holograms floating around, and Han says, you should think it was a bunch of mumbo jumbo.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out it's true. The Force, the Jedi, all of it, it's all true. Holy shit, man.
Yeah.
Like, and we talked about this on the podcast when we covered that movie. It makes it so much better that it's Han, this like cynic, this like scoundrel, this dude who just like, just the Force and this crap, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
to hear those words come out of his mouth, like I'm about to cry in your podcast too, man. Like, it's just so powerful.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one.
Yeah, if you were to, and I've never done this, and now I might have to do it, is play back to back the scene where in A New Hope where he's just like, this is ridiculous, to seeing, and just the way Harrison delivered it on top of everything else, you're like, he saw some shit, and that's what got him to that point, right? So that's amazing. Cool. So the last question is, what is your go-to Star Wars quote?
Hello there. Of course. Every day of my life. Multiple times a day.
Easily usable. And there's good to have it there. That's great. So tell us a little bit what's going on with Story of the Year right now. Where are you guys going? What's the plans?
We are mere days from completing our new album.
Awesome.
In theory. I finished bass yesterday. We have a couple songs left that Dan is doing vocals on right now. Maybe not right now. He got really drunk last night, so he may not be doing anything today. But I want to say he has 2 songs left. And then we got bits and pieces that we'll probably have to touch up. But for the most part, it's done. And then we go into mixing and mastering and, that whole process, which will take a while. But I'm guessing going to be like a late summer, early fall release.
Awesome.
For sure needs to be out by October because we're playing the When We Were Young festival in Vegas in October.
That's great.
And it can't not be out then, because that's the biggest festival that's maybe ever happened for our genre. So
that was one of those, there were so many memes that came out. That came out and
it broke the internet, dude. It was crazy.
That's an amazing show. What a lineup. It's like, it's my sort of like formative. I was born in 1970, so like that was when music was just like so important from the 90s through like 2010. That was like, that was it for me. So it's really wild. And where can people follow you, Adam, on the interwebs?
I am at Adam the Skull on everything. Well, not TikTok because of my age. And you can follow the podcast at Thank the Maker Pod on TikTok, surprisingly, and Instagram, and at Thank the Maker on Twitter. Podcast you can find everywhere you get podcasts. We are making the jump to YouTube, hopefully. I'm not going to say hopefully. It's happening. Do or do not. There's no try. By the time Kenobi drops, we'll be on YouTube. So there will be the video version, whatever that looks like. And then, of course, the audio version will continue to live on the audio platforms.
That's awesome. Well, Adam, this was a blast. It was great talking to somebody from a podcast I love who's got the same attitude that I have about Star Wars and happens to be a bass player on top of everything else, which is pretty awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out. This was great.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Cool. All right. Before I let you go, I want to have you say, this is Adam Russell and you're listening to Around the Galaxy.
All right. Hello there. My name's Adam Russell from Thank the Maker and Story of the Year. You're watching. Wait, hold on. You're watching or you're listening to?
Listening.
Okay. Once again, sorry.
Take 2.
All right. Hello there. My name's Adam Russell. I'm from a podcast called Thank the Maker and a band called Story of the Year, and you are listening to Around the Galaxy.
Perfect. Thank you. Let me hit the end broadcast.